The state tax on gasoline helps fund maintenance on Oklahoma roads and bridges. But what if you drive an electric vehicle and don't pay that tax but still utilize the roads? Is that fair? Some people don't think so, and they're working to change the system. Steve Shaw joins us now with more on that. Steve.
Rich, there's a lot of passion that goes in a lot of ways on this. For that reason, ODOT is starting a pilot program that they say could replace gas taxes people pay at the pump with user fees based on the number of miles they drive.
Tony Smith is Associate Director of Finance and Business at Oklahoma State's Oklahoma City campus. 7 years ago, Smith bought a 4-year-old electric or EV Nissan Leaf. And he's never looked back.
It has been an amazing experience for me. Yes, it's been one that, I save money. So it's like threefold, really. I feel good about what I'm doing for the environment, save some money, and man, is it fun to drive.
There are limitations to how far Smith can drive each day, but he fuels up in his garage at home each night, and it costs him a whopping $12 a month. Yeah, a month.
And the money that I've saved, not paying for gasoline for 6.5 years, I paid for the car, which cost me a little over $8,000. And it's not just the fuel savings, it's also maintenance. There's virtually no maintenance with an electric vehicle.
According to the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, there are around 6,000 electric passenger vehicles right now in the state, and that number is climbing. We're talking about vehicles that don't use gas, and because of that, the people who drive electric don't pay that 19 cents per gallon gas tax that everybody else pays to build and maintain Oklahoma roadways. And that's why ODOT just rolled out Fair Miles Oklahoma. The state's looking for 500 volunteers to register on the Fair Miles website to get started.
We're not going to transact any real money. Nobody's going to get a bill. We don't want anybody to pay. But we're trying to demonstrate what you might see as a tax bill on your personal driving habits.
ODOT Deputy Director Don Sullivan says Oklahoma motorists, on average, pay around $120 a year in transportation taxes.
It may take a few years, it may be 10 years, but you're going to have more electric and hybrids and plug-ins than the traditional gas vehicles.
Tony Smith says last year, for the first time, the state charged him $110 because he was driving an EV.
I have no issue with paying our fair share for anywhere that we have over the road.
So the $110 registration fee was recently passed by the legislature, and that is to try to start to solve this problem.
Sullivan says state lawmakers directed ODOT to conduct the Fair Mile study, which will last 6 months and will be financed in part by a federal grant. She says ODOT will report their findings to the state legislature in December.
Is it true ODOT estimates that by 2030, funding from state fuel taxes for road improvements could decrease by half? Is that true?
That is true.
Jim Newport is president and CEO of the Oklahoma Trucking Association.
According to the American Transportation Research Institute, in Oklahoma, we pay 45% of all of the road use taxes that are collected, yet we only represent about 14% of the lane miles actually used.
The ODOT study doesn't track over-the-road truckers. That's done by the feds. But Newport says that doesn't mean they're not following it.
Now, there's all kinds of politics behind that. There's all kinds of geophysical issues such as, well, I'm using clean electricity. Well, are you? Do you know for sure that the generating plant of that electricity doesn't use coal, or maybe it uses compressed natural gas? I mean, those are fossil fuels that are turning those dynamos. So unless it's strictly wind or hydro, again, not to get off too far, but the point is what's behind the push for electric vehicles in the first place. I think one of the things that we should be most concerned about is how are you going to measure the electric vehicle usage, and more importantly, how are you going to collect that tax? And a lot of the western states and some that have gone through this have adopted what they call a VMT, a vehicle mileage tax, or something similar by a different name, but it's basically the same. Models have shown, and again I'll refer to the American Transportation Research Institute, that a vehicle mileage tax costs an exorbitant amount for the data collection of all electric vehicles, and that processing of all of that data is really cost prohibitive compared to the tax that we collect and use now with traditional fuels.
Deputy Director Sullivan says newer passenger vehicles and newer technology will make it easier and more cost efficient to track.
To go to a pay-per-mile system, it is more intensive, and we anticipate that as these systems get rolled out, that there will be some efficiencies gained and that the administrative costs would go down. The idea of letting people in Oklahoma participate in this pilot means they can be part of figuring out how to solve a problem that we're going to all be facing in the future.
Last year, U.S. Transportation Director Pete Buttigieg announced that by next year, all new passenger vehicles sold in the U.S. must average at least 40 miles per gallon of gas. By 2026, that number goes up to 49 miles per gallon. So folks, something is going to have to give.